We're live! Welcome everyone to TableTalk, where we talk all things tabletop. I'm your host, The Bella Gamer, with my co-host here, Glue Boy.
Hello!
And today's subject, I think it's going to be a really interesting one. It's a very interesting concept, because I think, everyone's going to have some slightly different opinions on it. Also, hey James, hey Oi man, how y'all doing? But as usual, before we get to the main meat of the subject, where we chat a little bit while people are still hopping here into the chat room. So we usually start around the 25-minute mark, give or take. So if you're watching this after the fact, you can just skip to that point of the video. But Alex, what have you been up to lately?
Well, I put out new video, and it's a new video on a subject, it's a subject on a thing where it's whole gimmick is, I discovered this new fun thing. I want to tell everyone about it. This fun new thing I found, it's kind of the coolest. I'm a big fan. And then everyone's coming out of the woodwork being like, we've known about this, man. I'm glad you finally figured out about this peak thing. I'm like, it's just me. I'm the only person who didn't know this existed. What the fuck? I'm supposed to be the Warhammer lore expert. And it's insane. It's so goofy.
Yeah, you're really doing really well.
I'm glad it has. I didn't think it was gonna pop out, but it's only because I'm just getting fans of the Raptors chapter coming out being like, hell yeah, they're the best. It's like, okay, yeah, everyone just likes them. To be fair, they are very cool. They're so fun. The entire vibe of let's take Space Marines and have them fight like a modern military force instead of charging into melee, going full glory for the Emperor. It's like, no, let's actually sit and think about this. It's very fun.
Hello, hi Andrew. It also, you just hit 5K subs recently. I saw that too. So
that is cool. It's fun to wake up and realize I hit a sub goal. And because I just didn't notice. That is sick. Slowly but surely. Oh, I can't wait till 10K. Both of us are in that camp. We're gonna get there soon.
Yeah, for sure. It's I don't know. It's the first initial climb. Once you hit 10K though, things dramatically slow down, because it's 11K, 12K, who cares? You know, you hit the 10K mark. Maybe you care a little bit at 20K. But
the milestone, at least, because I'm of the opinion that the milestones that matter, in my own head, is you get to 100. I was like, nice. You get to 1,000, cool. You get to 10K base, and then it's 100, and then I don't know 500K, and then 1,000,000. It's those big numbers. I'm also not a big milestone guy. I've never been big on that, but it is very cool to have those. Just, you have the markers of success. That's the part I at least appreciate.
Yeah, I more appreciate the momentous ones, when you hit 1K and then you get so many video views and everything, then you can make your channel a monetized channel. That's
1K matters. That one is one that and 10K really matters, because that's when your channel can get verified. That's another one that I put a lot of stock into. Those are the two, and then after that, it's kind of just your own head what sub milestones you care about, which is, for me, then 100K is the next one.
Yeah, the 100K I think is the next big one for me, but even I think 50K has a lot of weight to it. It's kind of like when you leave the diaper phase and you're a little child channel. 100K is when you're okay, now this is a channel and you're doing things.
Well, actually, because of my subject matter, I do have an extra milestone that really does
Oh yeah,
it's really important. I do have the 40K.
Yeah.
That one is really important. There's that is like the one subscriber milestone I actually see 40K lore YouTubers pay attention to and like make stuff for. I have yet to see a lot of them do stuff for like 100,000, like 50K, any of that. I've seen them do it for 40K because that's like, you know, the good number.
Yeah, then you're glue boy 40K.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's what matters. I'm granted I'm a bit more variety, but still, it'd be a bigger one, so I'll care about that one. I'll slot that one in.
Yeah, but I watch your video and it's really interesting. I love watching your videos. They're really good.
I appreciate that.
Full of a lot of interesting info.
I read a lot, and it's really fun when someone I've been people coming in and then correcting it, like some info, and it's like the part that gets me is people correcting something that it's like I'm directly quoting like a book there. That like this isn't a
that's
that
very
isn't a
Warhammer
debatable point. Exactly. Like this isn't a debatable point, my man. Like I am quoting the like word of God basically. This is canon. Like what are you going to do? I had somebody come in on a video and like their big interpretation of like you're wrong about this. It's like you're quoting headcanon. Like that's what you're quoting here. You're quoting headcanon. I'm actually sourcing books. If you can come at me with like a text evidence, I'll believe you. And then it has made it hard for me to watch other Warhammer YouTubers because I read, and then a lot of them I notice it's like, you're pulling from that source. No, that's not accurate. Don't do it. Stop.
Yeah.
Fucking Breaking Bad screaming in the car. Fucking GIF. That's me with a lot of Warhammer YouTubers going to the Warhammer wiki, like the fandom one. It's like, don't do it. They use headcanon and like meme sources. Stop it. Don't go there.
Yeah. It's something. Well, it's also just really hard to keep all your ducks in a row because even if you've read the book, like no one has a perfect. Well, that's not true, but most people don't have a perfect photographic memory, so it's really easy to like misremember how a thing went or what was said or whatever.
Oh yeah, I do. I do it all the time. It's just the part where when I'm looking at stuff, if I'm usually like trying to figure out where certain like claims are coming from is what I do. I'm just trying to figure that out. And then a lot of times I'm like, I read something and I'm like, that seems really vague. And then I try to backwards source where it came from. And then sometimes I have found that I find the original book and it's like, okay, I found a PDF of this article from the 90s and I read it and I'm like, that's not what they're citing something and that's not what this says. What the fuck? And I discovered that like somebody put this in like a wiki article and they were just wrong because they just misread it and I'm like, oh my god. Yeah, I gotta love it. You gotta love like lore communities.
Right.
I mean, we got our balancing act, you know. It's the fun of like I have these issues. You got your own issues doing like actual tabletop like rule issues, which to be fair with some of the people that come try to correct you on there, I wouldn't take that for
right. Yeah.
I wouldn't take it. But you're back to build videos, which is very fun. I need to watch that one. I've been trying to do cleric builds recently.
This is a demon I've finally exercised that has been long sitting on the channel because a while ago when I started my Patreon, which I never talk about because I never did any of the promises, I was like, all right, I want to do cinematic builds, and this build was my first build I was going to try to make into a cinematic build. And I was like working really hard. I wanted to make like higher elevated content and I wanted to make something really, really good. And I could not get myself to either work on the project or to be okay with anything I did work on the project. I also tried to try to find like better art for it, which is like it's so hard to find the perfect art for the thing you want without commissioning art for it, and it's like, do I really want to put in a bunch of effort, like money towards a video that's gonna earn me maybe like $15 or something like that? And so the video just sat in like production hell forever, and then I deleted it one day, and now I recently just did the build, and like it's a very good cleric build. It's a cleric build that, like, if you want to hit as accurately as a martial character, it's really easy to do in the build. Plus, you're just a full cleric caster who can do not all the spells because you're not a great caster anymore, but you can do enough spells where your character becomes unkillable, pretty much. It's a really, really fun build for that. There's so many, like, Player Core 1 added so many really cool feats for the War Priest, essentially, that you can just make an unkillable regenerator tank really, really easy.
And that's a playstyle people want.
Yeah.
Like, I hear it off all the time. Even like my real life, I have friends who talk about it like, hey, here's a cool build I made. The build concept is I wanted to make something unhittable or unkillable. Like, that's just the vibe. So that hits. And also, I know just people like it, as I can immediately see from chat. People are immediately like, hell yeah, build videos.
Yeah. Thank you, Nerd. And yeah, I will be doing some more build videos. Mostly for a couple reasons, but one, the Pathfinder space is missing build videos, honestly. There's just not a ton.
I think specifically build videos that aren't like build X character in Pathfinder.
Right.
The only ones I see are like, here's an anime character or whatever, and you can just make them Pathfinder, and not just like general concepts.
Because oh goodness, what was that one? Yeah, Crunch McDabbles. Crunch McDabbles was kind of like a build-ish kind of channel. He talked about a variety of things, but like he did some builds as well. But he does not do content really like all that frequently. Like, he made a video a month ago and then another video 7 months before that. So there's not really much on the channel in the way of in Pathfinder of build videos. So I'll be doing that. Also, I really like a lot of my builds, actually. Like, it's one of the few things is I genuinely like the builds I come out with. Even though they're not optimal, they always have some play style element kind of attached to them that you can really sink your teeth into. Like, this recent build was, hey, you want to play a War Priest, you know, you're on the front line, you want to hit people. That's the big thing a lot of people want, is they want to be able to hit people with their melee weapon really well. Okay, here's a build just for that. Also, you can't die anymore, you know.
Yeah, which, I mean, hey, fun news. I just tried the good old-fashioned incognito tab. If I look at Pathfinder 2e builds, your playlist comes up first.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's because also, genuinely, of the channels that have done builds, I've done some of the most.
You got like 23 builds. Like, I think it's all in all, like, it's good video stuff for people. I think also it's the stuff I see word of mouth spreading your name, because I've seen it around on like Pathfinder Reddits of people saying like, this is like general character idea, and then someone's like, oh hey, I guess you didn't know, Badluck Gamer has a video kind of similar to this vibe, you should go check that out for inspiration. Literally,
someone on the Reddit was like, I'm looking for a Pathfinder Archivist build. And someone's just like, hey, you know, Bella Gamer did an Archivist build, and it's really good. It's like their favorite build.
It works, and I think it hits a lot of people instead of just doing like X character in Pathfinder, which I like. There's like there's some Twitter accounts I know that do stuff like that. I think they're doing some good work on Twitter, like engagement with people who might not have gotten into Pathfinder, of like, shit, that's just possible in this game. I think that does really well there. But for people who are already in Pathfinder or just like looking around, getting ready for their first game, it's really good content to just immediately pull people into, like getting them ready for a game. And that's the fun of it. Also, it's just rewatchable, so it's just always going to grow.
Yeah. Also,
there's just a lot of benefits to it.
I've learned my lesson, and now I'm doing the builds on Path Builder, so people can click a link, and rather than just a weird like text document essentially in the description. So
that'll do it. Path Builder's great.
It's great.
I love it.
It's good. Yeah, and yeah, I don't know. Is Jose Josue? I don't know the pronunciation. Mr. or Mrs. Costa. Yeah, they're not optimized builds. I don't make optimized builds because, one, I don't think optimized builds really work in Pathfinder. It's not a game where optimization is really rewarded in actual, like, gameplay. Because a build that does a lot of damage is not a build that necessarily can handle every combat scenario super well. It's a game that inherently is a team-based game. One character really can't do everything. And so making thematic builds that do more or less the thing you want them to do really well, then you can kind of just like add on top of it is very typically what I go for, because then people who want to play a play style that feels fun, interesting. I also try to do play styles that are not very directly tied to the class itself, but like a subgenre, like my Envoy of the Lantern King build, for instance. You play a little gremlin. That is the whole build. You play a little gremlin who's the most annoying character to pursue and to mess with, making it the perfect build for your character to create distractions, because whatever mischief you make, you can always get away, because pursuing you is the worst thing anyone could ever do. It's a fun build. It's really interesting.
Like, I think there's really fun vibes that you can hit with Pathfinder, and they specifically with this edition made it so it's hard to make a really bad character. You can optimize your character really, really hard, but I think it's a game that you can make a character vibe and a character style and not have it be like a detriment, which is really nice, because I have a build that I've been kind of excited to try out at some point that I don't think is going to be like that strong, but I think it'll be super fun. Or like, when I say that strong, like, everyone I think hopefully knows what I mean. It's not optimal, and I'm also going to be using an archetype that isn't crazy strong at all, as everyone knows. I have a Poppet Witch build that is very like Pinocchio themed. A Poppet Witch of the Mosquito Queen, or the Mosquito Witch patron, that is using the Living Hive archetype, which everyone knows the Living Hive archetype is not that good, like, at all. However, I want to have the vibe of a hollow poppet filled with bugs and just fucking rotted wood, gross bugs, and like just the most disgusting poppet witch. I want that specific thing, and I immediately did that, and it's a very fun, like, debuff heavy, and I just picked every gross spell in the game, and I found that the character operated very well in like just the build theory crafting. Yeah, the Swarm Keeper, that was it. Like, it's not great, like, it's not very good. There's like problems with it, but because like it's just like a worse animal companion is one of the problems.
Yeah, though Swarm Keeper, I do have a good build for Swarm Keeper.
Oh yeah, there are ways you can mess with it.
My champion Swarm Keeper build is genuinely really good.
100%. And like, I'm not going to be optimizing it, but because we play with free archetype, I can take it, not be hurting myself, and I'm not using my free archetype to optimize. I'm using it because I want a spooky, like, mosquito bug swarm from my patron. And like, that's just a fun build I've been kind of working on. There's so many other examples of like just characters that you can be working like that.
Got you, Joshua. I will do my best to remember that. That's what I was thinking, but you can never be sure. Magus is one class you kind of want optimized because your action economy is so tight, you might as well be really good at the one thing you do, even though... Yeah, Magus is the one class that makes me truly sad, because they're not a bad class by any regard. If anything, they're one of the best damage classes in the game. But that's only if you play very, very particularly one way.
Magus has a route. It's something we've said multiple. Like, there is a correct path in your turn order to play Magus. It feels very MMO. And like, you have fucking turn rotations to play Magus. And that's something I'm not a fan of personally. It's not something I like in tabletop games, because that's not the point of a tabletop game. I'm not here to do fucking like turn rotations and go through all that. I like it because I should be able to kind of free flow in this imaginary space that we're all operating in. And I should be able to be like, you know what if I did this instead and did something a little crazy? And that's the reason I'm really happy they changed Swashbuckler, like, and adjusted it around to make Panache easier to gain, because it made Swashbuckler a lot more free flowing, because that was another issue with Swashbuckler. There was a correct turn order to Swashbuckler. And they made it so it's just way easier to play with your mechanics.
You don't have to spell strike every round. You can play however you want. Yeah, that's true. But the problem is,
but the numbers, the damage.
The problem isn't even that. It's like the way the class really is designed to function is just one way of playing. You know, it's just you have to play it that one way. If you want to do anything else, then Magus is not, like, why are you playing a Magus rather than another class, right? So,
like, in my experience playing Magus, I wanted to play a elemental, like, basically like aquatic mage fighter. Like, I wanted to do the thing of like I swing my polearm and a giant tidal wave comes out. That was the vibe I wanted. Yeah. What I really got was a lot of moments where I teleported in, I attacked, I probably missed, and then because of that, wasted spell slot, and then I had to recharge, and like there's just a specific order to do things. I just wanted to play a very, like, I wanted to play the, what is it, Gish? That's the spellcaster fighter thing? Yeah. I wanted to go full that. That's not exactly what Magus is, I guess. I don't know. There's just particular methods of playing it, and I'm just not into that. I think it's also not super hard to alter. I think just by changing things slightly. Honestly, one of my big things I would be even happy with is if they made it so Spell Strike activated just the next successful attack you did. That's the one I always posit, of just, I don't like it that if you attack then immediately miss, you lose your spell. I don't like that. I just wish it was the next successful hit, the spell goes off. I'd be even fine if, like, the moment you store a spell, you can't cast a spell until you, like, let off your spell strike or dismiss it. I think that'd be fair. Like, fine, if that's the trade-off, but, like, I just don't like the wasted action completely of, oh, I missed and my spell's gone. I don't like that, and I think it's, like, a lot of annoying wasted action.
Legitimately, I think Magus would be done better if they could spell strike once per, like, minute, or once per 10 minutes, or something like that. Like, it's a wild thing of the action is so good that it makes it hard for a lot of people to choose to do something else. Like, I tried playing like a buffing Magus. That was the biggest thing. And I eventually, it just became, well, buffing is pointless. There's no way I can buff myself to do better than just spell strike rotation. And like, that's the problem, is no matter what you do, you can not outpace the even if you're using cantrips, you can't outpace the damage that a spell strike does with like buffs or anything, because you would just be doing less damage overall. And some people can just play around that, and that's completely fine. And there's a lot of people who enjoy Magus. I also know that like a lot of people like the ranged Magus variant. I can't remember the study at this moment.
I will say the ranged Magus looks significantly more fun. I just like when I was playing Magus, it was the complete opposite of what I wanted it to be. And I was really sad. It was like the vibe I got in my head was nothing like what it actually operated as, and I was really disappointed. Like that was my problem.
That one.
Yeah, Starlit Span is very cool. And that's what really hit me with Magus. And like I can understand, and I've seen people like operate it well, and I've seen people like talk about how cool it is, and I agree. And I'm happy that people have like a favorite class. I'm always happy when people like something I don't fully mesh with. But I'm at least like, my issue is purely that in my experience playing Magus, I had so many moments of just, oh, and my entire thing is wasted because of a single like bungled attack roll. And then it's like, if I want to play this correctly, to play like basically a DPS frontliner in this like turn, in this brutal combat, I have to play it exactly like this. And I have these spells that could operate like this, but I would immediately be fucking up like the fight right now. I'd be opening up my party members for attacks. I need to keep the attention of all this. I had all that going through, and I was like, okay.
Yeah.
I'm so much less into this. And then I switched to a wizard, which I had so much fucking like options in a fight, which made it so much more fun.
Yeah.
Really what I wanted. I just wanted things to do.
For real. Also, thank you, Ferric Falcon, for the follow. We appreciate you. Anyway,
I will say the hybrid studies are very cool. Like they're all very unique to each other.
And the Tianxia ones are even cooler. Like,
oh yeah, they did a great job with Magus. I just do not mesh with this playstyle at all.
Right, same. And that's definitely something that I'll address in a future video. And yeah, I also did like my little guy video. A lot of people seem to like that one. I will be doing similar videos as well. But let's talk about the biggest book from Paizo. This is one kind of a clickbaity title because it's vague enough that it can mean literally anything, but also legitimately an interesting question when you think about what is the biggest book from Paizo. Like, would the original like legacy core book from Pathfinder 2nd edition be the biggest book because that was the start of probably some of the most popularity Paizo's ever gotten? Would it be Player Core 2's final release, so that a lot of people who are on the fence about the game are now more willing to jump into the game? Is it going to be War of Immortals, because it is the first big class release after the remaster, even though technically Kineticist was designed to be player core ready, essentially? But War of Immortals being the first big one with the first big event, like actual world event with the death of Gorham, the biggest book. Is it a book next year? Is it Starfinder 2E? I want to know what you guys think is the most like impactful book Paizo has released and why. I'll give you mine. And I really think the biggest book that's released honestly might be Guns and Gears, actually.
It's really funny because I have two that I honestly have been jumping in my back and forth between my head. One of them was Guns and Gears, because Guns and Gears and Dark Archive are the two in my head that I'm like, what are the most common like pieces of content I just see people pull from to use in their games? And it's like Dark Archive and Guns and Gears, I feel like gave us the most just raw stuff that is incredibly useful and sick. Also, both like combined, 4 absolutely phenomenal classes. Like I adore them so much.
Cries and Book of the Day was also really good.
That was a cool one.
Also, yeah, funny enough, I've played the Age of Ashes adventure path, which was the first one they released for 2nd edition. I don't believe the actual archetypes in that book are that good, but you know, it's a very interesting point of that they're the introduction of archetypes. Technically not, because the original Legacy book did have the multi-class archetypes. So, but for alternative archetypes, yeah, for sure.
Also, just before it is positive, I will mention Guns and Gears, I think, is the biggest supplement book. Like, page count wise, it's 256 pages compared to most other books being 220 pages.
Guns and Gears.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I've been like looking through all of the books because I was like, I'm just so curious. What is the actual, like, if I'm gonna take this question literally, what is the biggest book? And I keep seeing every book except Guns and Gears is like 224 pages.
And that's kind of like the interesting thing about this question, because like there's not really a wrong answer. Because yeah, I think James, I think that's a very interesting point too. It was really the first book that they really were trying to like tell a narrative with. And that one is that like made a lot of their future books way more interesting. So I think that's also very, very fair. I think so the reason why I've said Guns and Gears is like the most impactful, because that opened up the scope of Paizo's design when it came to like what elements they can use. Like now with Guns and Gears, we no longer need to worry about pure fantasy. We can have a little bit of steampunk thrown in as well. And with the Inventor is also one of my favorite classes in the game. It's genuinely a stupid fun class. It's so good. It's really, really good.
I came into it loving Gunslinger, and I still do. Gunslinger is so cool. I have a great appreciation for Inventor. Like I've gained a massive love for it. I think Inventor is so much fun.
Yeah, and my favorite build I've done so far, which has been kind of nerfed due to the changes to Trigger Brand, is my ultimate Trigger Brand book. Or not Trigger Brand, but one of the feats from Gunslinger. The one that lets them craft magic bullets. That got nerfed. But Trigger Brand, really, really good. Firebands. First book they hired me for. That's fair, and you know that's also like that book also means a lot to a lot of people as well.
Yeah, I think there's books in general that are going to hold more weight for each individual person, which is always great, because whatever book that you've derived the most worth from, it is really fun to hear, because like that's why in my head like I'm pulling from it's a fucking toss-up between Dark Archive and Guns and Gears, because like it also doesn't help that those are genuinely at this current moment, because there are a couple books I'm super excited for on the horizon. Those two books are my favorite supplement books that Paizo has released, like outright. They are so fantastic, and like I hope that spot is taken by Warcry and War of the Immortals and Divine Mysteries. Because those three books I am looking forward to. I could see War of the Immortals being like taking that spot in my head, at least for like most impactful.
Yeah.
It seems like it's gonna do a lot.
I'm very excited. Also, I want to make special mention. James here. So James has been, participating in the channel for a long time now. You've been adding interesting parts to this conversation and others before. But I also want to give special thanks to you for also helping add parts to a game that we all really enjoy. So thank you so much, James. You the GOAT when it comes to some of our audience members.
Yeah, for real, man.
And I do love the perceptions here. I think a lot of the archetypes kind of jumping in and everyone being like, oh yeah, archetypes. That was kind of huge. That's very interesting, and it's funny because I think Age of Ashes is honestly one of the worst adventures they wrote. Like, actually playing through it, it's a bit of a mess, but it has a special place. Also, it has the Hell Knights in it, which are my favorite faction in the game. So,
Do love the Hell Knights.
it's great. It's Guns and Gears. It was so popular that they have to like remaster it. Well, they don't have to, but they're going to remaster it because they just sold out of books, and they're just like, okay, well, I guess we're just gonna remaster it now because we gotta make more books anyway, which is like such a gamer move to do, to just be like, man, our book sold too well. Let's just let's change it and make people buy it again. It's such a gamer move right there.
I love it.
Yeah, Secrets of Magic with the first class archetypes. That's also true. It's really, really good. War of Immortals also, like, War of Immortals may be one of the biggest books for me personally, because it might be one of the biggest like jumps of growth in the channel. We'll see. So far that belongs to Player Core 2, which outperformed Player Core 1 by like a few hundred subs in a month and like way more views. Like, let's see. I can actually look up how many views I got on Social Blade.
Oh, yeah, while you're doing that, I do really love this point. Repeating my earlier point of Moangi Expanse and Tian Sha were important too, which I really agree with and like, because I, as a lore fan, as someone who's gotten into Galarian lore and has appreciated it, and my plan is when Divine Mysteries drops, I'll make more videos on Galarian. I adore the Moangi Expanse and Tian Sha lore books. Like, those Lost Omen guides are so fantastic. They're so well done. And like Moangi Expanse also is one of my favorite setting guides ever. I think it was just so fantastic because I'm also a giant fan of fantasy that is not set in just what is obviously Western Europe.
Right. Yeah.
That's always my shit.
There's a reason why the Moangi Expanse book sits by my chair all the time. It's honestly like a book they haven't been able to recreate. I love the Tian Sha stuff, don't get me wrong.
It's really good.
The Moangi Expanse book, I think, is like one of the best overall like books design wise I have seen from Paizo, and it's such a fun book to read. All the peoples that they talk about from the Moangi Expanse are really, really interesting. Some of my favorite dwarven subcultures come from the Moangi Expanse, and it's such a fun book. And like, while the Tian Sha does have some really cool stuff, and the new ancestries they released in that were awesome, and the new like hybrid studies and everything, really, really cool. Yeah, also the iconic is from the Moangi Expanse, also being from my favorite orc subculture as well. So
I learned about them last week. They're honestly my favorite now too.
They're really, really cool. So yeah, a super, super good book, and one I haven't seen them do similarly since, which really shows like how much care and effort people put into the book. I think it was really, really good. I didn't actually get the Impossible Lands. It's one of the few books I don't have is the Impossible Lands book. So I definitely got to check that one out. But the Impossible Lands also has a lot of really cool stuff in it as well. I just haven't gotten that book yet and haven't looked through it. But it's and this is y'all ready for our favorite segments of Table Talk? D&D could never.
Yes! Yes! 5e is trash.
Everyone's favorite section here on the Battle Gamer channel when we start bashing 5e. Though, I will give 5e. They have some really cool concepts for some of their like adventure books. Like Into the Witchlight, really, really cool. And the whole idea around it is really, really cool. Also, their Magic School book, what was it called? Oh god.
I'm so unfamiliar with like the actual non-core book releases.
Strixhaven. That one's also really, really cool. So it's but there's so many books. Like I think it was James earlier who was talking about like complaining about Paizo not releasing enough. And recently I've looked back, and in the 10 years D&D has been a thing, D&D 5e has been a thing, compared to like the 3-4 years second edition has been a thing. Paizo has about as many adventure path books and way more like player option books than D&D ever could. It's tragic. Legitimately, yeah. A passing phrase in my house is, I feel bad for 5e players.
Yeah.
It's so bad. I don't, like, I want, what we want is for D&D 5e to be good for people. That's why we talk about it, is because we have my best friend, he's playing in a game every Friday, and probably, from what I've heard, one of the best homebrewed settings in 5e anyone has even played in.
It is incredible because mainly because of a lot of hard work from a man who spent just a stupid amount of time working on it for like years, because it was going on for years, and then I joined 4 years ago and left it this year. So like it was going on for like 3 years. So yeah, it was like this campaign's been going on for like 8 years or something, and he's been working on it longer than that. So he's turned 5e into a actually more interesting system, but it's still got some 5e isms, and they also had to scramble and panic multiple times as 5e is released shit, because they do stuff virtually and have to use D&D Beyond.
Yeah.
And that's been fun every once in a while, poking my head in that Discord and seeing them go, oh fuck, is all of our homebrew going to get deleted because we're using legacy 5e content?
It's yeah, we could talk about WotC's shit till the cows come home, but I wanted to emphasize, like, we are here in this chat, sitting here talking about, like, oh yeah, remember this book and this book? Isn't it so good? All just like hyping up Paizo because we're genuinely eating good, getting lots of great books, having a legitimate discussion about like what are some of the most impactful books. And then you look at the D&D 5e side of things, and it's just like, they must have a real bad case of the grass is greener on the other side, because it's just like, it's just barren. Like, the fact that it took so long for WotC to release a new class, only to then not include it in the D&D 2024, and to have one of its core designer, was it Jeremy Crawford, saying, yeah, you know what, honestly, there's too many classes, we should have less classes.
Yeah. You know what, the other bit that I'm just also realizing, if we ask the question, what is Wizard of the Coast's D&D 5e's biggest book? Unlike this question for Pathfinder, I think there is a correct answer.
Mm-hmm.
It's Tasha.
Oh, Chris Perkins, my bad. I get their names confused sometimes.
Like the biggest book for Wizard of the Coast is just like, they did Tasha's Cauldron, and like that fixed a lot of like issues, like that Bandage fixed, but like it did do some good stuff, and like that's kind of it. And then before that, it was Xanathar, because Xanathar kind of did the same thing, but like, there's no debate there, I don't think.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Eberron. Eberron, the only I remember that setting, in that it was one of the few 5e settings that I thought was actually kind of cool.
It's a really good setting. Like, there's no argument that some of the best writing for a tabletop has been done in the D&D universe. But like, it's it's one of the parts that I find the most frustrating, because I do want D&D 5e to be a good game. I really do. And many of the choices I've seen them make, like how bad they just hate Ranger for some reason, being one of the classes that people find one of the most iconic in tabletop, at least the Grognards, is really tragic. And
you know, the worst part is they literally reversed some of the Tasha changes.
Right.
Because the Tasha changes, like, actually made it functional. And like, yeah, meanwhile, we're eating good over here with Pathfinder Ranger. Exactly, James. How dare it be so good?
Yeah, how dare Pathfinder's Ranger be really good? Also, you know, with War of Immortals and the Vindicator coming out being now even more badass than it was before.
Oh, yeah, actually, looking on earlier, yeah, maybe the more impactful 5e release was Critical Role.
That's true.
Good point, James.
The biggest release in all of D&D, Critical Role playing their game.
God, yeah. Like, those books are actually good. Like, I do like the Critical Role books.
True, James. You have no idea how much I want that to be the case. I want Lancer content like you've been wanting Pathfinder content this whole time. Just give it to me. I love Lancer. It's so good. It's legitimately, like, in my top 5 TTRPGs, and the only reason why it doesn't beat out Pathfinder is because the pilot side of the game feels really weak. I'm not gonna lie. But the mech side, flawless. So good. I've never seen a more fun battle-based TTRPG system than how the mechs work. It's really good.
I did admit that you won. I did do that. According to Lancer lore, the Monarch is the best mech in the setting, and that makes me really upset.
True.
Because the Monarch is so lame. I just don't like it.
And Fabula Ultima, like, we've been playing a Saturday game of Fabula Ultima as well. A game I literally started because I had to get it into my veins to play some more, and it's been a really fun time. Definitely, I don't know if it ranks in my top 5 TTRPG games. There's a lot I love about it, but it's a little too rules light for me at the end of the day. Even though building builds in is super fun.
It's a fun game, but it is a game that, like, you need a good group for it. It still is like some of the pitfalls of a rules light, but I think it's probably the most fun rules light system we've played in.
Yeah, I agree.
Like, it's that kind of deal of, like, if you're somebody who's been, like, you've been playing rules light, you're like, I can see the fun of this, but I want a little more. Fabula Ultima might be what you need, but it's still got all the pitfalls of it. Like, the character stuff and the character interactions are so much more interesting. Character creation. I really like how they did the introduce, like, plot element stuff is very cool. And then our group and, like, your GMing of it is exactly what the game needs. But I can see other groups trying to do it. And honestly, some of the, like, horror stories, quote unquote, I've heard, like, the one I know of is Puffin Forest, for example. Like, I was I watched his video on it, like, back when it came out.
Mm-hmm.
And quite honestly, the things I hear of people saying, like, their critiques of the system is them trying to introduce crunch into a game that doesn't have it.
Right.
It's like them trying to be like, wait, so what are the rules for this? And it's like, well, no, you just do it.
Yeah.
Like, so can I just do this thing? It's like, yes, the answer is yes, you can. Just spend a Fabula point. You can do this. It's like some people just have a really hard time wrapping their head around that, and I think we can hop into it. Our problem for our group sometimes, for certain players, is the idea of, all right, what do you do? That sometimes is tough.
Right, for sure. It's one of the things like I posted on Twitter once that rules light games are actually advanced tabletop and not great for new players. And Fabula Ultima has really shown me that more than anything, because Fabula Ultima has a good amount of rules for a variety of things, but it's still kind of rules light at the end of the day. And watching some of my players struggle with it, like, they're learning and they're kind of getting the hang of like what it can and can't do, but it's definitely feeling like a bigger learning curve than it was getting into Pathfinder, which is ridiculous considering Pathfinder is like somewhat complicated and kind of a steep initial learning curve with all its different traits and systems and like how some classes work. But Fabula Ultima also just plays to one of my strong suits, which is improv storytelling. I'm really good at that. And a game system that has a good amount of chunk that introduces like a lot of mechanics for improving is where I shine the best, honestly. So it's really good. I just can't say it's like one of my top 5 because it's like the parts I like about it are the crunchy parts for a not crunchy game. You know what I mean?
I also don't know if I'd put it in my top 5, but like I have a great time in the game. And like I think it's a similar vibe as like, honestly, it's a step above Monster of the Week, because Monster of the Week is a rules light game where we hard carried it with our group.
Yeah.
And this one is one that is definitely also similar rules light vibe of, I'm just of the belief of rules light is group dependent.
Right. It really is.
A lot of the time. Like, I think every tabletop game kind of depends on the group, but because every game is going to mesh better with certain groups. But like, if you have a great DM and a great group with a rules light game, it's going to elevate it so much higher. You need people who are willing to engage with like role play and like describing everything. You need that because the mechanics are not going to uplift it at all like it could in another game. And so like we have players who are willing to like role play and like play out bits and stuff in Fabula Ultima. It is purely like decision making that is like people are starting to learn. And I know like I understand the hurdle for like plot introducing elements, because I've said it many times. I think it's just the fact that back in the day I played the Star Wars Edge of the Empire system that helped me understand like kind of naturally putting in limits for character introduced narrative elements for like, mechanics. That part, doing that so early on in like playing tabletop games really helped, because anytime we interact with it, I'm like, oh hell yeah, I'm set, gamers. Because it's just like you interact with the system that introduces it, but not in a way that's like you can just introduce whatever you want, instead of here are the rules of what you can introduce, which is what I enjoy. You got to have like the framework.
Gotta have a good structure. I think any good game needs structure, just period. And like the fun part about structure is you can always build off of it or tear down the parts you don't like to build on top of it again. Like one of the games I know is in my top 5 despite its rule set not deserving to be there is Anima Beyond Fantasy.
Same.
Like, Anima Beyond Fantasy I think is hard stuck in my top, like my 5th. It's like it's always going to be my number 5 game no matter what comes out, because I have some of the best tabletop memories in that game, and like the world is so interesting. And so like I've never played in a game and in a setting that I have had players and myself alike be genuinely interested and invested in the setting itself. It's so good, but the rules are such a mess. And it's a little anime cringe sometimes. Fucking
it can be a bit
Hellion Soulbringer is a character in the game. And it's so good, but it's one of those games that like it has a lot of crunch, and a lot of it doesn't go anywhere. And that's a game we definitely tore down some pieces to make it work, and we made it work good.
I'm trying to like map out what my top 5 is because I feel like I forget every time.
I think it's okay, and it's okay to change over time. Pathfinder 2nd Edition for sure has been my longest running like favorite game, but I feel that somewhat has to be biased because also I've been making a channel and making not a living, but making income based on Pathfinder as of late. Lancer is probably my second game. I'm hesitant to say, but probably my second game. Until maybe Starfinder 2e comes out, but like I think the hard part about Starfinder 2e for me is it's just more Pathfinder, it feels like, so it's hard to like give it a spot because it almost feels like it shares the same spot with Pathfinder, even though their balance is even going to be very different and how they play is going to be different. Maybe I'll feel very differently once we actually get to play some Starfinder 2nd Edition.
Because it looks like it's gonna be different in a fun way. I'm gonna be excited to play that. I feel like I'm gonna really mesh with it super well.
Next time you're taking questions, what do you think the next Mythic AP is going to be? I think it's going to be something Nidal related. That would be interesting. Nidal is such an underused region because it's tied to Chiliacs. But I don't know, honestly. Maybe we might have some interesting Arcadia like tie-ins. That'd be really, really cool, wouldn't it? That's kind of like a dream, an idea for a Mythic AP. Like when you're talking Mythic, Ocean Crossing is always kind of like Mythic. Also, like it helps that the iconic for the Exemplar is kind of based on Maui, which is sick. I love the idea. Yeah, and I agree, Phoenix. Like, I think Starfinder does have a lot of potential for sure. It's just right now they're too close in my head together, Pathfinder and Starfinder 2nd Edition, to like really separate it out. But I'm very curious. You know what? Honestly, I don't know what my second game is right now, but I want to put Lancer in my third slot. I think Lancer's a really good like third favorite game currently. And then after that, there's kind of like a blank spot. I don't really have a super hard-coded fourth. Anima is going to be my number 5 slot, and it's going to be for a while because I love the game, but that system was a train wreck. Yeah, that's also true. The less classes in Starfinder is a little bit sad. But it's always been a game that hasn't had a ton of classes in comparison to Pathfinder anyway. So it makes sense, but I still feel you there. Honestly, oh yeah, also, this reminds me as well. There's a bunch of heavy-hitting tabletop games releasing next year too that we gotta consider, like the Cosmere RPG.
That's the part I'm super excited for because I'm so pumped because one of my top 5 games of all time in my list is the Edge of the Empire Star Wars game. I adore that game, but as I've said many times, fuck Star Wars. I don't like it. I don't like the setting at all. And it's the similar designers in a similar system, but in a world I like a lot better. And fun fact, I've been going back and actually reading the other Cosmere books. I'm on Elantris right now. That book is all right. It's pretty good. It's not fantastic or anything. The magic is has yet to be introduced. I got like 10 more hours in the book. It is yet to be fully shown off, but it's kind of cool in the way that like it's an intense magical writing system that is like mathematically introduced So like you have to write in the air, and you basically summon a little rifts in this like giant power source, and if you fuck it up even slightly, that's bad. Because like it's almost like you opened a hole in like a giant tank of water. It just comes flowing out really bad. But it's like when people are writing about magic in that world of Mondor, it's more like a mathematical system. Like everything is super organized, which makes it very cool.
You know,
Also, protags are basically zombies, and that's kind of fun.
You know, the world building kills it in a game when someone starts talking about it and they just start speaking another language. It's great.
It's great.
I love it.
It's so sick. It is also very cool. Like Elantris is very weird. Elantris is a book that kind of is it starts off with the protagonist. He turns into a zombie because an Elantrian, as they get turned into an Elantrian, you basically die. Your heart stops beating. In like you don't heal anymore like naturally because your body is just kind of ceased. And so if you get hurt, you don't heal that, and you just feel that pain forever. So like the protag at the beginning of the book, he stubs his toe as like he's running away from some people, and for the entirety of the book, he has a stubbed toe. So like picture that in your head. Just like the moment you stub your toe, never going away. And that's one of the issues for Elantrians, is you kind of go fucking nuts after living like that for months, because every single little scrape or bruise you accumulate kind of builds and builds and builds, and also you get mega hungry. You're just absolutely so hungry, and there's not enough food, and then you're just like, man, I'm gonna go fucking insane. I can't handle this. Because you don't really die. You just kind of, you can just withstand stuff. The only way to kill an Elantrian is to like burn them or decapitate them. You are literally a zombie. It's a weird book. Also, they like develop communism in the book. It's pretty interesting. It's got really good characters though. It's very slow though.
Yeah.
Also, it's very clear that it is like his first published book. It's very like early in his career.
Mm-hmm. But still, I mean, like, I'm so hyped for the Cosmere RPG, and for anyone who's concerned about like what they say, it's like 5e. It's not like 5e.
No,
it
really isn't.
That's just market bullshit to get people to interested in the game. We looked at it. We looked at the playtest stuff and everything. I would hazard it's more like Pathfinder.
The similarities to 5e is the fact that it uses a d20, which Pathfinder, and it has it plays with advantage, but I would say it gamifies advantage a lot more than D&D, because like the entire system for the Cosmere RPG, from what it looks like, is really like imposing advantage and disadvantage either on your allies or on your enemies. So like you got advantage or your enemy just got advantage. Well, take this maneuver to give them disadvantage to remove that. Like that's the gamification of advantage, disadvantage. Oh yeah, the playtest is on Demiplane. You can go check it out.
Yeah, go check it on Demiplane Nexus. You can get a lot of the core rules like pretty early on. Nothing super deep yet, but they do have some of the paths of Radiance.
Yeah, they have the two well, they fully released the Duskbringer path. They have the path for the Windrunner and the oh man, I'm such a bad fan. I'm such a bad Stormlight Archive fan. The Lightweaver. Those are the three that we know of right now. And then they have 2 trees of all the normal careers, because they hid one of each of them because they're not done yet. And then they're working on Mistborn. Elantris is going to get its own thing, I assume, around the time Brandon releases book 2 of Elantris, because he's actually working on a second book for it. So I would assume it's going to intersect. And then later we're going to get a World Hopper book, which would be very cool.
Yeah. But so we have that. Daggerheart's coming out, and I think Daggerheart had some really interesting things in their initial playtest.
The game looked cool. Like I people were just being kind of weird and mean about it.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to make a video on like why Critical Role gets so much hate, because I think that's a legitimately interesting cultural phenomenon, really. because it extends
Yeah.
beyond just like grognards hating Critical Role. There's a lot of people who dislike it. Also, hi Ploy, how you doing? But
I
we
think you
also
gotta
have
make the point of for that video. You really gotta hammer in that point of like, wow, all these critiques of no initiative system. Man, it'd be so crazy if a popular tabletop game didn't have initiative and then have just a fuck ton of games pop up that don't have standard roll for initiative.
yeah.
Like a lot of games pop up. It's like it could be kind of weird if you only came at one game for not having a system for rolling for initiative, huh? That was the thing I was the most like, this is super blatant.
Yeah, DC-20, that's another game coming out next year. I'm very interested in what's going on. I don't know too much about it, and that bit of information is so I have a mixed bit of feelings, because it's like the Spellblade is like a merger of all the 5e Gishes, Paladin, Sword Bard, Blade Singer, and it's like, that sounds really cool. Yet it has spell strikes. Interesting.
I'd have to look at it.
I would have to look at it too. We also have Draw Steel coming out, or MCDM if you're unfamiliar with the name change.
Oh shit! The Discworld Kickstarter is dropping tomorrow. They released today for early stuff the Get Started guide.
Have you looked into it?
I have actually.
Tell me about it. I don't know anything
Yes.
about this system itself.
So I'm coming off of this from people who have talked about because I was not able to get my hands on the quick start guide. Sadly. I'm looking up to see if I can also find it. So there is a Discworld tabletop RPG that's set in it's Discworld Adventures in Ankh-Morpork. For anybody who is big fans of Discworld, which you should be. Like Discworld is a fantastic fantasy series. But there is a big thing of the Discworld like universe is that it is a deal that there's a thing called narrativium, which is an element of the universe that the world must follow narrative tropes. And so the whole vibe is that you are finding a way to beat the substance of narrativium to get around it. And you're going around it. That's the things that basically prompt the roll. When you're rolling, you're trying to beat narrativium, to break out of like the narrative and impose your own will on the story. And luck is a big thing. There's also a system in place for the Discworld constant of there's just a 1 in a million chance, but it might just work. But if this is a rules light system, incredibly rules light. In fact, like there are basically very few stats because this is a trait based system. And so like you add traits to your character, and the traits that you write down are what motivate rolls. As well, it is super actually open about this fully. So this is going to be what makes or breaks what this system is going to be used for. It is not designed for campaign play. It is designed for one-shots or short games, like a couple sessions or a one-shot. That is what it's explicitly designed to do.
Interesting.
So it is not made for like leveling up your character a lot. Because like that's not what Discworld really is, aside from like it has like some characters that are like really long running, but like the characters don't like get stronger. That's not a thing. They kind of just live their lives, and some of them just don't die. That's kind of just the deal. You don't become like a powerful wizard in Discworld. That's not really a thing. So that's really the vibe. You just kind of can tell goofy stories in Discworld in this like fun rules light like comedy game. That looks like what it's setting out to do.
Interesting. I don't know. I haven't been so into the Discworld, so
it's a good series. Like it's a fantastic fantasy series. For fans, it looks like it'd be really, really good. I don't think it's gonna mesh with our style super much. like, I don't think it's going to be a great game for us. It looks like a game I'd enjoy having the core book, is like the kind of immediate assessment I made. I'd like to have the core book as a Discworld fan. Yeah, the lack of stats and maths implies that the full game won't really have rules for leveling up. So like this game is designed to be like a palate cleanser game.
Yeah, it seems
like your sessions.
Oh goodness, what it seems very novel. It's a very novel game.
Exactly, and that is that's exactly what they've like talked about in what they're doing. Which I at least enjoy the fact that they're saying, like, this is what our system is. It is designed for short games. Like, you are not going to like level up and go through all of this. This is something that's designed for like one shots and fun little like games in between stuff. I think that's a fair enough market to try out, and like that I think is more fitting for Discworld, to be completely honest.
That's fair.
Kind of what it is.
Yeah, I think the TTRPG market isn't good for that right now, personally. I don't feel like we've developed a culture enough where like small little asides are what are on a lot of people's plates. We're just trying right now to get people to play a good TTRPG more than we are trying to get them to play something just for fun, you know? But as someone who's a long time, like someone who's been a TTRPG hobbyist forever, that sounds very interesting to me personally. You know, that sounds like something that like I would do or our group would do because we play TTRPGs all the time and have been doing so for years. But I don't think it will make a lot of money.
I can see like it doing well on Kickstarter, people buying the core book, like because of the Discworld name. If this wasn't tied to Discworld, I don't know how well it would do. That's at least my opinion.
I can tell you already.
Oh yeah, being tied to Discworld, it also is just the fact that I think that reading through what I've read through, this is the format that suits the setting like the absolute best. This is doing it incredibly well. Because this is like exactly when I first heard they were doing this, I was like, they could do this really poorly. This is an excellent rendition of the Discworld. However, is it going to be like a great tabletop game that I'm gonna want to like drop everything and go play immediately? Probably not. But I will probably buy it because I want to check it out.
Honestly, you know what I really want? I want more TTRPGs that are just not stock standard fantasy. That's what I really am looking forward to, which is definitely not a lot in the cards in the upcoming future, unfortunately, because like Daggerheart is D&D but done by Critical Role, essentially. Like,
yeah, basically.
When we played, that was heavily the feelings I got, and while I definitely think the system was interesting, while I definitely think the game has a lot of interesting aspects to it, the general D&D feel of it kind of was off-putting for me personally.
I feel that it's the reason I appreciate Discworld a lot, and it's because I feel the same way. I'm a big fan of like things that just aren't stock standard fantasy. Like I get really bored of it. Because in Discworld, the intention is like, it's meant to look like stock standard fantasy because the joke is that like, the world has to be that. It's playing to the tropes of fantasy, so that everything can be like constantly subverted and like played into in like a big meta narrative kind of deal. And then as well, Terry Pratchett, like just telling the story, it feels more like, this is a fantasy world that also has the vibe of like, just this could also just be like the UK, but there's just dwarves running around, which is very fun. Like it's that kind of deal of it's a stock fantasy world that doesn't feel like a stock fantasy world with the stories it's telling, especially with when it like starts going through like the industrial age and shit. It's very cool. Like, yes, I will say that is a fair way of putting it. I will It's like not exactly correct.
Yeah,
it's kind of like meta
Discworld-
Monty Python and an anthology.
Discworld is surprisingly a lot deeper than that.
Oh, it's so deeper. Like there's some genuinely like beautiful stories inside of Discworld. Like there is some if you want like some immediately impactful stuff, start reading the series with Death, because there's like it's all released in chronological order, but you don't actually read it that way. You read it in the characters you follow. You read Death. Death is his entire deal is you're reading the sad story of a bureaucratic worker losing faith in the job he does. And it's like really touching to like the working class. It's really good. And then like there's another story of it's basically the Milan story of like I need to go fight to protect my country. I'm gonna pretend to be a man. But she starts to realize that everyone in their military unit is secretly a woman. And then it turns into like a story about like gender expression and like what like it turns into that, and it's like really progressive and kind of like heartfelt, done like 20 years earlier than most other things have done. Like that, Terry Pratchett's just a genuinely great guy.
Yeah.
Also an angry man, I will say. Discworld is very angry towards the modern day and how things are going. It's pretty good. There is a book that is considered to be a response to J.K. Rowling and the situation with the House Goblins for brushing it away with they like slavery, and instead he wrote an entire story about like no, let's actually talk about there is a race in fantasy that has existed to be like killed off and subjugated. Let's actually talk about it. And it's really good. It's like so well written. It's one of the guards books. So I would highly recommend reading through Discworld for anyone who hasn't. They're so well done. Terry is fantastic. We lost a real one when he passed away. But from what he's talked about in his own beliefs, a person only truly dies when you stop saying his name. So,
True.
Sir Terry Pratchett, he's not dead yet because we still talk about him.
But yeah, next year we have like so many big books coming out. And then Paizo, it's just like, it's so weird because like I've been generally aware of Paizo since Pathfinder 1st edition. And they kind of killed it during the D&D 4E era. But like Paizo's just getting bigger and bigger. Like more games. Some of the greatest CRPGs to come out have been based on Pathfinder 1st edition.
Wrath of the Righteous was very fun.
Boy, man, why must you hurt me like this? Why'd you gotta say that in the chat, all open in the air, so that I have to read it?
When did Pathfinder 1st edition come out?
Alex, are you gonna hurt me too?
Probably. That's why I did it. Oh, yeah. Kind of same.
I hate you. I hate this.
Not exactly. I was not exactly 8 years old, but that's roughly. Dang, that's crazy.
No one will guess.
Were you also 8 years old, Cam, when it came out?
Yeah, no. Closer to 18. No one will guess, but I was a senior in high school when it came out. Oh no, I wasn't a senior.
Yeah, because it came out in 2009.
Well, I mean, I graduated 2010.
August 2009. For anyone extra curious.
Was it?
Yeah, I just looked it up.
I swore it was sooner, earlier than that.
I looked up Pathfinder 1st edition release date, and it said August 2009.
Huh. I swore it was before.
That is when the first book came out. It was published August 2009. It was publicly tested in 2007, 2008, though. The first book was like full released 2009. So like it was known to be a thing in like 2 years before it came out.
Yeah. Weird. It's weird thinking that era of my life. I thought I was 16 when it came out. I mean, that's really, really close. Because 2010 was when I graduated, year 2010. And I was not quite 18, I was 17 at the time.
I was, I think, preparing to move to Japan because my dad was in the Navy in around the time that came out. We moved there, like, I think literally August of 2009.
At least I was born with good enough genetics where no one can tell I'm in my 30s and I'm about to have my first child. That's so funny. Every time it comes out in a video where I'm like, yeah, I'm in, like, I met a guy at my family's house in town here who is like working on the air conditioning, and we were talking, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm 32, I'll be 33 this year, and he's just like, really? I thought you were younger than I was. Good genetics. And the guy was like 26.
Yeah.
He had like a full beard.
Oh yeah. You do not look 32, and as a man with a beard, that's how you get them. The beard is what throws people off.
I could tell the guy was not like that old though, because he had a youthful face, but like,
oh yeah,
it was just one of those situations where if you were to compare us side by side, you would have guessed I was younger.
Oh yeah, the moment I shave, I look way younger. And
you know, I wish I could grow a beard. This facial hair I have right now is the extent, unless I really want sideburns, because I can grow sideburns. So, you know, it's like this with a sideburn, that's it. Anything else is scraggly and does not belong on any person's face.
Oof, that's so fair.
It's rough. I dislike it with a great fervor.
Yeah, the length of my beard that you might see in my YouTube videos is that in granted you can in real life, that is literally the longest my beard can go until it starts to curl and then grow back like at me.
Yeah.
And like I can't have it grow out too much, and it sucks because I do want just a bigger beard. I want it to grow out and like longer. And it's like I can't do it. There's like a specific length it has to stay at to like look decent, and I hate it. I also got I started being able to grow this when I was like 16.
It took me for a while. I've been a late bloomer in many things though, facial hair being one of many. But I'm lucky because I didn't get male pattern baldness like a lot of my friends have, so I get to keep my hair. Not it wasn't even necessarily a dig at you, Alex. I'm sorry.
I don't even take it as a dig. It's not something I'm at all like insecure about. I've made my bed. I constantly joke about it with my partner that I keep whenever a bald character shows up, I'm like, that's gonna be me in a month.
Right.
And it's like a perfectly smooth like me when I was playing Hitman. Like I was saying, that's me in literally a month. Like perfectly smooth dome. Nah, I've made my bed. I made my bed when I was like fucking 10. Like I got over that quick.
Yeah, no, I had some friends like I went to high school with, and like the second high school ended, boom, hair gone. It's crazy.
It hits people hard.
It
like,
really does.
If I go like my dad, like in the same way, like because he's not bald, but like the top of his head is so thin, like if he gets a bad enough haircut, the worry is that it won't come back. Like that is the worry. And so like there's just enough that you can't call him bald, but like but not enough to be like, yeah, you got a whole head of hair.
Right.
So I just know that I'm just gonna have like not a lot of hair up top, but I can grow a full beard. Like that's not impacted at all.
That's the way to go. You're lucky. There's a lot of people who lose their hair and can't grow a beard. So, you know,
yeah, be full hairless on my head.
But I don't know. We're also like really entering into an age where like hair growth and like regrowing hair is becoming more and more of a thing. So
it seems like it works for some stuff. It just looks complicated, and then the bits where I've looked through it, I've seen. It's like I've never like researched it a lot because like I said, I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
Funny enough, the most I know about it is from a podcast I listen to, and because they joke about baldness, because one of the members is bald, I hear a lot about like the methods of treating baldness because of that through the mocking of a friend.
Yeah,
And
how
like
it
I've
goes.
never looked into it myself. Like and like, it's just cutting through like what parts are real, what parts are scams. Like I have no clue where to start. It seems like a lot, and it also sounds like it always takes like years. And I know my attention span; it doesn't last that long. I'd forget, or I'd just lose interest. I'd drop the regimen, and then all my hair would like fall out again.
You know what, Dev is? That sounds nice. My family's always had very thin hair, so we just like when I got this hair like I have right here, like even this hairstyle, I'm gonna have until I'm 80. That's it. It has never looked fuller, and it will never look fuller in my entire life.
Nice.
It's just going to be what it is. That's just how it is. But most of my family get to keep their hair well into the late years of their life, so it's small things. Also, like, I'm very curious. I might start looking younger depending on how this diet goes, because if I like trim up my face a bit more, I might start looking like I did in some of my like videos from like 9 years ago. I watched some of those videos recently, and I'm like, man, I look like a child in this video.
That would be really funny.
It's
And like
crazy.
that's also an extra fun part about the YouTube journey is it kind of turns into a little progress report as well. Because one of the hard parts about the exercise and diet journey is the mental of like, am I losing weight still? Like that's why taking progress pictures is so important because you stop being able to notice your own stuff. But you don't need to do that if you make your own YouTube content. You can just
True.
watch a video you made a month ago and be like, wow, okay, that's different.
Yeah, I'm
That's
actually coming
great.
up to my first progress pick here in a couple of days.
Hell yeah.
I've like one of the reasons why my videos have been coming out so slow lately is because one, I've been putting a lot more effort in. You guys have probably noticed a little bit more editing in some of my recent videos than I normally would do. I'm trying to not be lazy anymore, but also I've been dieting, and like I've been trying to roughly stay close to like a 500 calorie deficit, which is supposed to be like a pound a week, give or take. And in the last month, which has been a little bit more than 4 weeks, I've lost 9-ish pounds, give or take. So I think either my metabolic rate is a little higher than I thought it was, or I've been just overestimating my calories, which is probably more likely the case. Because I always like to err on the side of like overdoing it. And so my energy has been all over the place. Earlier this week, like I've had the video recorded that came out today since Sunday, actually. It was supposed to come out Monday. But I was awake for like 8 hours that day. I slept the rest of the day. And the next day after that, I was up for like 10 hours. So I put my diet on a little bit of a hiatus until my energy levels balance out a little better. And then I'll just try to eat more, funny enough, to
Yeah.
during my diet anyway.
My strat with it, because I always went a little too hard on the like other side of dieting, was like, well, if I can't like limit myself food wise, because like I just get really fucked up when I have like if I don't have my proper nutrients and my blood sugar is impacted, like I get messed up. I'm just going to exercise harder, and that's one of the reasons I got into boxing, because it's so good and intensive and really fun. And like that's all I did. I was just like, all right, I'm just gonna go harder and just do that. And that was my fix. So not perfect, because then you just are more sore more often.
Well, it's also just harder to burn calories than it is to just not eat.
Exactly. It doesn't help things. There's always every person's gonna always have like the different methods for what works in their life. It also helps that I at least like I have my day job as a a job that is me on my feet constantly, and like I am doing stuff. So like I am burning calories at my job. I exceed my step limit on a light day, and on a hard day it is like actual more manual labor intensive work, where I'm doing a lot of shit, like heavy lifting shit.
Yeah.
And then it made it tough to go to the gym after for like training stuff.
Yeah,
So
I've also been unable to go to the gym because I've had like it's not really IBS, but like I've had this issue in the past where I have like what's it called? There's a part in my intestines. A lot of people have like the little like the little like tendril things in your intestines, you know.
I think yeah.
I have one that's particularly like large and sometimes gets twisted and then it becomes inflamed. And so like it's just like a pain in my lower abdomen and it doesn't feel good. So I've had to not go to the gym for over a week now while that's been setting itself. It's almost like it's gone. I don't feel the pain anymore. I still feel a little bit of something. I'm just waiting a little bit longer before I go back. Before I start working out on everything again, because I just don't want to agitate it and be in pain. Especially because I'm really bad about like working hard. Not that I'm bad at working hard. I'm really bad about working a sane amount. I'll always overdo it because I don't register I'm overdoing it enough. So better safe than sorry. I've learned my lesson. I've peed blood before. I won't do it again. But yeah, that's been a like my health journey took like a weird nosedive here at the end of this first month. But I'm excited to get back into it, and hopefully I'll be getting back into it soon. But right now I'm kind of like off diet to get my energy level back, and then I'll be trying to balance it better after that. But back to the subject, big books.
Oh yeah.
We just started talking about a lot of things. Discworld is what set us off.
That's true. It is a new tabletop game that's coming out.
It is.
So it was on topic.
It is. It was on topic, but Discworld itself abhors being on topic for anything. So, except in a very subtle way. But there's so many books coming out next year, and actually, I want to ask the audience here: anyone know some 5e players? I'm really curious. Anyone know some 5e players? Or is anyone here a 5e player? In which case, I'm sorry. Not sorry you're playing 5e, though I'm a little sorry for that too. But sorry that we also have a segment where we just bash the shit out of 5e like every time. Because the 2024 has been out for like over a month now, I believe, give or take. And beyond some like very low energy, like, oh yeah, it's kind of good. The 2024 book felt so limp, I think is a good way to put it. Very limp for a book. Like, it's there, but no one seems super excited about it. And this was the biggest release in 5e's like schedule since essentially Tasha's guide or Tasha's tome.
Yeah.
And I really feel like next year, with some of the top D&D content creators moving and making their own books, like Matt Colville, coming out with their own games that are like kind of built off of the bones of 5e, but obviously with more TLC. I really am curious if it's going to be a shakeup next year or not, because I mean, like, 5e has more or less been running off fumes forever. But the thing is that it's just the game everyone knows, and stuff was coming out that people were liking. Like, despite what I or Alex here might feel about how 5e has been going, like, people have loved things like Strixhaven, things like Strahd, things like like,
I'll say the Descent to Avernus was a well-made adventure path.
you know,
Like-
actually, my favorite adventure path they did was Dragon Heist. Really, really good.
That was a fun one. That one was a really good time.
Really, really good time.
We got some good memories of it too.
True.
But, like, that was just also a good book and a good story.
But like in the last year or so, what has come out? Honestly, wait, when did Tasha's tome come out?
Good question.
Because it feels like it came out like a year or two ago. 2021. So that was February 2021. So over 3 years ago at this point. Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. That's what it was. Thank you, Yuzi. What would I do without you? Oh no, 2020 was Tasha's Cauldron?
Oh yeah, because that came out like right in COVID. Or like right before it at least.
So almost 4 years. Almost 4 years. It'll be 4 years this November. Tasha's came out. What has come out since then that anyone has been even remotely excited about? I might be asking the wrong audience here.
Yeah, because this is an audience that
There's obviously some biases here about D&D. But I feel like enough people know at least some D&D players. Excited? Not much. And that's the thing, right? So we have DC 20 and we have Draw Steel coming out right around the corner. Oh yeah, I do remember something. I do remember that coming out, but I've heard no one ever talk about it. And 2024 yeah. Also, yeah, like people might even forget that they also released a space themed Spelljammer book because it was so non-consequential and so light of really anything.
the most impact I know that happened with Spelljammer was the controversy, but like the one I actually remember is there was a Dimension 20 one-shot they did over like COVID, their Dimension 20 break, that was like a fantasy high Spelljammer like thing where they just fucked around with some Spelljammer like setting stuff. Like that was the joke, was just like, all right, let's go to a Spelljammer college for like a college orientation. Like that was the joke. It was a fun like one shot, but like that was it. And yeah, I also heard the Dragonlance book was not very good.
Oh yeah, they had that too, and I heard absolutely nothing ever from it. So it's like 2024 was supposed to be the big book, the next big book. It was talked about for ages. It was something they were talking about. And you know, like I think like I was getting concerned when we had the state of play for Dungeons and Dragons, which was a laughable affair considering that they barely talked about the TTRPG game and they didn't talk about D&D 2024, which I don't even think had that name at that point at all during that state of the play. Like, we watched it here on stream. It was terrible. Their biggest news was they had a Minecraft collab. But D&D might, yeah, exactly. And 2024 was supposed to be the big book, and everyone I've seen who is in the tabletop area has like looked at it skeptically and been like, there's some good things in here. And that's about it. There's been also some people who've been like, there's some bad things in here, but like for the most part, like a lot of things people were having some problems with, like Monk overall got buffed, Fighter got more interesting and stuff like that. But then there's like, okay, but Ranger for some reason got nothing again, and then also Artificer got removed from the game. Well, not from the game, but from that book. And it's like, that was, yeah, for Hasbro. Well, yeah, which is, oh no, the phrase is spreading. Poor D&D players.
I like that phrasing because I agree with it. It's just, I think it is our stance. It's like we're not hating on the people that play the game. I think there are Pathfinder players who are a little too aggro to D&D fans, and I don't like that vibe.
I agree.
I think we can look at them playing it and just be like, you had another absolutely lame release. Hey, of my sympathies, bro. That sucks. I'm gonna turn around and enjoy my thing. Like, come join if you want to, but like that does suck. Because I'd love it if their game was cool. I genuinely would. But well, like that's more cool games would be nice. But you know, it's not. Their company sucks, and I completely agree. Dead Phoenix. The books are the annoying thing they have to do that barely gets money. That's why they're really subtly trying to find the way that would be acceptable to their audience to try to make D&D a subscription-based online model.
Or to put AI in it.
Or put AI in it. Those are the ways that they can make the money. They want to make D&D monetizable like a video game or a subscription service, because those are the two like models that would work. Publishing is not super profitable at the scale they are operating at.
It's in like like I agree. Like I think there's a lot of Pathfinder people out there who kind of have this small dog syndrome. Like they have to shit talk D&D because it's the biggest dog in the room, because it's a threat to Pathfinder or whatever, which is just not the case. But like I'm very curious to see after pretty much a lackluster 0.5 edition or whatever we want to call this. Like no one even knows anymore. It's I can't help but think that D&D players are even getting wise to it at this point. Like you can definitely tell in the content creation community that it is slowly and surely starting to fade in some regard. Like the content creators just can't be excited about the game anymore, because legitimately, what do they have to talk about? They can only talk about how they broke the game so many times, you know? Like everything about D&D has been talked about D&D, and the only thing really people can talk about nowadays is what cool homebrew they're making for the game.
I'm seeing what's happening to D&D business-wise the same way I'm seeing what a lot of streaming services are getting hit with right now. And it's the fact that, like, funny enough, it's kind of similar to Game of Thrones. It's the fact that there's a product that blew up stupidly, like exploded, and it then started to kind of like get so explosively popular that then corporate side, they're like, we gotta keep it up. What do? Release more stuff. Fuck. Are you telling me releasing more stuff costs money? Damn it. All right, here's what we'll do. We'll throw money at the problem and see what we can deal with. And they're trying to recapture what hit like D&D with the Renaissance, but sometimes success is like a flash in the pan, and I think that's really what they were hoping for with this new like updated release. Is they were hoping for the exact same boom as like before. I don't think they're getting that, and I'm curious where it's going to go from now. That same thing is hitting a lot of other industries, where they're trying to recapture a boom that happened a long time ago and is probably not going to come back. Because it was a one in a lifetime thing.
See, I don't like that thought, because that would mean that they did their best and couldn't recreate it, and that's definitely not what it was. It wasn't a flash in the pan, or like maybe it was, but it was also they're like, oh, that was cool, and then they did nothing. And they made nothing. They hired people to do nothing with the game. Like, it wasn't like they had something that hit really well and then they tried their best and couldn't recreate it. It was, they literally just didn't try ever.
Yeah. Yes.
It was literally like Critical Role, and there was all these people talking about the game. A lot of people got interested, and they're like, that's really cool, we might be able to do something with this. What do we do? I don't know how to make a game. Let's have these people make a game. And then people started making the game, and we got Xanathars, and Xanathars I felt was genuinely a good step in the right direction, honestly. From the
it came out
game.
like at a good time. Like it came out like perfectly, like, yeah, because they actually hit it. It was like Sword Coast, which added some new good stuff, and then like a year or two later it was Xanathar. Like,
yeah,
they dropped like good stuff at a decent rate. It was just after Xanathar they just stopped.
Yeah, it just
like they just completely ended. And I think that was around the time they just started the trend where they hire people on, they then like work on a book or two, and then they fired them.
Right.
Like that was just the thing they kept doing. And like or the person would quit, because that also kept happening. They had a stupidly high turnover rate because apparently working at Wizard of the Coast wasn't very good. Like, because also you'd get fired like all the time because like, it's slightly less profitable. Fire them first.
Well, and then there's obviously like a lot of the corporate meddling in like some of the books and some of the stuff that was coming out. And then they started pulling out these really weird metrics for like how successful some books were versus others. And it's like I don't know how stupid you have to be so blind to just not see Pathfinder working their ass off over here in the corner, knowing that your company has more than enough money to pay people to do the same thing that Pathfinder does. And if you could have the same level of quality at the level of access that D&D has, they could have made a lot more money, obviously.
But that would require upfront costs.
No, that would require competency.
Exactly.
Because the thing is like all corporations are upfront costs. Like, you can't make money without putting money down. That's literally business. It's more like how much you can put, or how little can you put down, and then have that, whatever it is, work under that line and make more money, is kind of like this the money up front. And the thing is like Paizo, like if they had the same quality of staff of Paizo, like sure, maybe it's a little bit up front, but they would keep a general higher base. Like they would have made more money, no question asked. And it's just competency. They just got dumb people working in whoever's telling them what to do.
It's people who might understand like some other business models, because the thing with like, executives, they are dumb and they're fucking around. But it's also like, when it comes to like operating a profitable business that is making all of its metrics and then some, they're at least good at that job. When it comes to operating it in a way that is like beneficial, no. Because it's people who just don't understand tabletop games. I would not be surprised if the people who are meddling like that have never once touched a tabletop game in their life.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, like that's definitely like, because it's like, if it's that vibe of like, yeah, look at the Pathfinder people over there, they'd be like, what the fuck is Pathfinder? Like, I don't know what that is. And I don't want to know what that is either. I'm gonna continue like looking at this, and then you also hit them with the I'd rather hit the let's print money button. Can we I don't know, what are the kids like? They like the adventure books. They'll buy that for the art. Yeah, let's do that. Like let's oh hell yeah, let's do this little option. Let's make them have to give us the money they make for content. Let's change the license. Let's do that one.
Right.
It's just it's a weird game they keep trying to play. It's the scale they're at.
I like I think it's just general competency. There's so many people who get to, and we see this in video games. So like this is nothing new. There's so many game companies who have been game companies forever, who do nothing but shoot themselves in the foot. Like literally Pokemon. Like
yeah.
Like Nintendo is like, hey, here's Pokemon, our biggest moneymaker. Let's just make the games progressively crappier and crappier as time goes by, because we don't want to give anyone enough money or time to produce a thing. And it's just like, if you did this better, you would just make more money. And they're like, meh, who cares?
It's like that bit of like, they would definitely, but it's like, I'm so curious I about like the metrics. If they this next game, if it was like the same level as like a Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, but it like, I don't know, ran on the system it was designed exclusively for, which is a crazy concept.
That's such a cop out. Scarlet and Violet was way worse fidelity wise than like Tears of the Kingdom.
Yeah, that's my point. Like Scarlet and Violet sucks. Like it just doesn't work for the system at all. But imagine the next game does. Like it actually works for the system that, because ludicrously, if you're making a game for a single system, it should function on that system. That's my point.
Yeah, but, I mean, it's I don't know.
Imagine if the next game came out and like did all that. Like I want to compare the sales numbers, because like part of me is like, I feel like the sales numbers might be kind of similar enough. Because Pokemon fans, myself included, I'm guilty of this, because I bought Scarlet and Violet.
I did. I played it a lot too, actually.
I think the game itself is genuinely like, I was like, this game would be my favorite Pokemon game if it was at higher than 15 frames a second.
Right.
That it would be. It has my favorite Pokedex.
Actually loading in.
It has my favorite Pokedex. It has some of my favorite just systems in it. I really enjoy it. But like, man, goddamn. And I was like, yeah, they might just be like able got the cycle to shit the games out, get all the money in. They're like, yeah, if we spend an extra year, we're losing money, like comparatively. It's like that's such an awful system. I don't like that. I don't like that reality at all. That makes me sad.
No, see, I think actually, I think I know what it is. I don't know, like, I'm sure I'm not the first one to realize this, and I'm sure there's more intelligent people on this, but what it is there's different levels of development. And so D&D, initial D&D 5e, obviously did not have this level of meddling that it currently does, right? Like, it feels...
it was like a passionate project.
It feels like, okay, we're making a new D&D game. Let's just throw them some money and see what happens. And then they hit something that was pretty decent baseline, honestly. Like, I had fun with D&D for a little bit. And what it is these corporations, they start off with, like, giving money to a thing. And when it works, they're like, okay, but how do we do the same thing but cheaper, right? Rather than investing and growing said product, they don't want that. They want to spend the same amount, or well, they want to take the same baseline but then try to do it cheaper. Like, how do we make the same D&D 5 ebook but pay less money to do it? That's their mentality. That's what a lot of corporations do, and I'm just now realizing it, and I don't know why I never thought of this earlier, but it's literally just, how do we do that but cheaper?
It's really funny because There's a lot of businesses that are doing that. Like that is this industry kind of standard. The one that's really interestingly the inverse though is film. Film and like TV
Yeah,
is exactly the opposite because what they
are.
do, that's exactly was what when I brought up the Game of Thrones example. Game of Thrones was the giant like flash in the pan like series that took over everything. And then ever since then, studios are trying to reignite the Game of Thrones boom. And that's why you've been seeing giant, stupidly expensive fantasy series. And so what they do is they're like, okay, Game of Thrones budgets for every episode was like, I want to say like $6 million, like an episode. I think it's like 6 or 8 million. And so they're like, gotcha. That's the money. What if we gave you, person who this might be your literal first directorial project, but you're kind of vouched for by this other guy, so that's something. What if we gave you 10 million an episode, but you have only 8 episodes for this entire fantasy series that is so long that there's no possible way that this will succeed? All right, make a series, make it successful, chop. And then they're like, what do you mean it didn't work? We threw money at it.
Yeah.
Like that's the film industry.
Yeah.
Is them being continuously baffled because they have so much money for budgets, but throwing money at people who aren't like who just are, they're not throwing money at like right people, or
Right,
they're not
yeah.
or they throw their money and then they're like, I see your vision, but what if you did it my way? A guy who doesn't like fantasy, and I also think that I also don't know how to write for screen as the executive. I have no training in this, but I think I know better than you. I also write your paycheck, so you have to listen. And like that is the rough part.
I think that's been a big thing with like Hollywood is the best way to kind of represent it. Like TV, movies, media, all that kind of stuff. It's always been a thing that like in the past it was always like almost gamble your money on a project and see how it goes. And then there's a lot of those projects that did really, really well. And so the Hollywood directors are like, okay, this is good. I'm an idea guy. Let me tell you what we need to do in the next movie.
Yeah.
And then it does terribly. And they're like, shit, okay. Let's hire some other people. Let's throw some more money out. Let's hire some other people to tell you how to make this next movie. You know, we hired some people who are looking at like general media trends, and they're gonna add in arbitrarily these elements that we think are gonna make this movie better. And so yeah, I think like movies and cinema, it's the exact opposite problem. But I think for video games, for the longest time, it's been this problem. I think it's a bit of both, because I think there's also some video games out there that have been the case of putting way too much money into a game that is kind of god awful.
Stoney likes to put a lot of money into a game, and then you see it's like, how are you breaking even on this? Like, this game looks nice, but how are you breaking even?
Like, but the game is boring. It's like, because you had a bunch of directors trying to tell you how to make a game without actually letting you just make the game, or a bunch of directors trying to tell you how to make a game and then tell you how to do it in just 2 years in like a...
Yeah, it's a thing that's actually kind of being attempted to push out of modern Hollywood, and it's very fascinating if people paid attention to it. Which, yeah, that's exactly the thing. That's why they're pushing for AI really hard. The old guard in Hollywood is doing their absolute damnedest to raise up the new generation by saying like, hey, Tom Cruise is actually the actual front of this, leading the charge, saying, hey, make sure you learn all of these skills. Learn how to do this. Do not let these studios hire people to do these jobs for you. Learn how to sing, learn how to dance, learn how to do your stunts. Learn this, because the more that they hire people to do it for you, the less power you have. Because the strategy that you have to operate at in the older days, and they're trying to get rid of, is you essentially had to get successful enough that you could tell the executive in the room to go fuck himself.
Yeah.
That was what you had to do. Like, if you had the bigger dick, of like, I am the person that if you fire out of this room, you make no money. Like, I am Quentin Tarantino, don't tell me what to do. Like, I am any other director, literally, like, giant name. I immediately blanked on all of them.
Guillermo del Toro.
Del Toro, like, just any large name. And then they just wouldn't listen. Or like the other strategy, which Mel Brooks was a giant fan of, actually. You agree to all of the notes from an executive and say, like, yes, I'm gonna do that right away, and then turn around and proceed not to do it.
Yeah.
Which is only works if you're such a big name that like they cannot catch you on it, because if they fire you, no money.
Yeah, project sinks immediately.
Exactly. And they're trying to kind of get rid of that. Because that's the only strategy. So it's very interesting, very funny. That's why the guilds are fighting so hard right now, and that's why you got to make sure you support them in their fights against all of this.
True. But yeah, so that's exactly why well, yeah, and animators, like, it's the opposite. Again, opposite problem of that. But, like, kind of circling back to D&D, it's just they're looking for more ways to make these books that are so lack of, like, player options, really, so that they can just make cheap books that they can print out. That's what D&D's been doing these last 10 years. And
I think it's just adventure books are the cheapest.
Yeah, because they don't have to make rules. They don't have to make anything that makes sense, because that takes development time.
I have to look at it, but I wonder if it's less staff to work on them too.
I mean, it could be. That's the thing, right? It could be. You have so many different writers working on projects all the time that you don't need to have a big team to get a book out sooner. You just need a bunch of small teams to get a bunch of books out in a somewhat regular fashion. So that's what it is. It's not that they don't understand how to make money. It's that their approach to making money is not good for the audience. Because the thing is, right, if they make a book that sells as well as the last book but spend less money on it, they make more money. And that's what they're trying to do, and that's what they've been generally successful on doing, because the books haven't sold in mass. You know, as their metrics say, only like 1 in 10 players buy books or something like that. And so they're like, okay, so we're just gonna make things that those people are gonna buy because, you know, they want the content, and we're gonna try to do that cheaper and cheaper every time. And it's like, it doesn't matter if they could be making more money. They're trying to squeeze blood from stone. And you could argue that it's working, right? I mean, a lot of people were super interested in D&D 2024, which, when you look at it, honestly, how much development time do you think they really put into that book? I can tell you, it's not a lot, because all they did was copy homework and then copy their own homework over into one book, and that's it. And
like, it doesn't look like anything fundamentally changed, like, at all.
It just looks like they took they had Chris Perkins, Jeremy Crawford get in a room, and they're like, all right, go through the book, highlight sections, and we'll change those rules that you think we need to change, but don't change too much. You only get so much highlighter ink after all. And they're like, okay, well, we're gonna these are the things people are talking about. I'm like, okay, cool, now change those in like 2 sentences or less. And that's how we got D&D 2024. Like, that's a gross underestimation, but in the grand scheme of things, it's pretty much that. Like,
change the game, but not too much.
Change the game, but not too much. Copy Baldur's Gate 3. People loved that game, you know, and it's just like, they don't understand why Baldur's Gate... Like, it's wild to me how many people don't understand actually what Baldur's Gate 3 did that was so good. they're just like, oh yeah, we see how you changed the game here a little bit. That's really, really cool. That's really interesting. We'll do that too. And it's like, no, that's not why the game was fun. The game was fun because they had so many mechanics to interact with, you know? Like, they added some, core mechanic stuff that was interesting, sure. But what made the game fun were, like, all the little interactions. How you could shove people off of things and it was very effective. Or how you could set up scenarios. Like, the best way to kill a lot of enemies was just to knock them into a pit, you know? That was fun, and that's using mechanics that you don't see a lot in tabletop, really, which is like environmental. Like, environmental rules exist, yes, but you don't see a game put emphasis on putting environmentals, like saying you need environmentals in your game. And that's what made the game fun. And obviously as well, the well-written characters, the branching storylines, and the fact that even to this day there are certain dialogue bits that people have not seen in the game yet, you know. But so yeah, it's just, they're just trying to squeeze blood from stone, or water from stone, or however you want to take that saying. And it's sad, really, because they could just invest, you know, like what you're supposed to do with money when you have a successful project, and then make more money. So I'm curious to see next year, when we have all these projects that are kind of growing close to home, right? We have Daggerheart, we have Drawsteel, we have DC-20, all of which heavily inspired by D&D 5e. And I'm curious to see what will happen to the market there, legitimately. If I want to see what happened with World of Warcraft, because World of Warcraft was kind of like the MMO when it came out, and it reigned supreme for such a long time, and people only started trying to migrate around after like Mists of Pandaria, when the game started changing and Blizzard kind of started getting more and more corrupt. Or whatever the first expansion after, well, I guess Wrath of the Lich King was also really good.
It's the one I hear. There's like 2 expansions I know that people endlessly praise. Wrath of the Lich King is one of them. The other one is the one that has Illidan.
Yeah. What was it? There's also the Burning Crusade.
And that's the one.
That's the one, okay. I think it was Mists of Pandaria. I can't remember, but like that's when people really started like looking around for other MMOs. And you know, it's been very hit or miss. There's definitely been some games that have been able to make it, like Final Fantasy 14 and all that kind of stuff like that. But I want to see that great exodus where, like, even to this day, World of Warcraft is still probably the highest, or at least one of the highest, depending on, I guess, what time of the year it is, with Final Fantasy 14, which, to be fair, Dawn Trail has not been doing super well for Final Fantasy 14.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Where conversely, the recent World of Warcraft one has been doing really, really well. But like, it's been doing really well, but there's a bunch of people who are out hungry for more like MMOs. Like, just today, I've been playing Throne and Liberty because it's there's a higher emphasis on PvP, and I was like, oh, you know what? I'll get on the PvP MMO section for once. I want to see what these big 70 versus 70 battles are like in this game, and it's been running really well despite the big numbers of people. So I'm very excited to get into that. But I want.
Oh yeah, that game like just dropped, didn't it?
Yeah, it released in early access today.
Oh.
I paid $40 to get into it because it's the funnest in the first week or two. So
that's fair.
Interesting.
I'll have to look into that. It looks like it's free.
It will be on October 1st.
Oh, I see.
It's in early access right now. Like I said, I paid $40 to get into it. So I don't necessarily recommend that, but I do want to do a lot of the PvP stuff. The combat feels pretty good despite being tab targeting, so I'm kind of excited. And also, even though there's a little bit of pay to win in the game, it's a heavy rock, paper, scissors system kind of deal with how builds work. So even if you're a free to play against someone who's, you know, using their wallet to play, if your build counters their build, you're going to crush them no matter what. So that's the part that seems fun. Whereas like there's always people out there that you can do well against no matter how much money you put into the game, which I think is good. So we'll see. Maybe I waste my money. Who knows? It's a gamble I'm willing to take because I've been hungry for an MMO, and they just Final Fantasy 14 kind of dropped it with Dawn Trail, sadly. But I want to see that kind of stuff with MMOs. And if next year, when we have all these big MMOs, I mean, literally the Cosmere RPG being the most funded RPG on Kickstarter to date is huge. It's great, honestly. And I want to see people getting interested. Sure, the hobby is going to never be like there was never going to be 100% retention from the D&D boom. That was just impossible. That's unrealistic to ask of literally anything. But tabletop today is bigger than it was before 2010. Like inarguably so. And so if we can get more people into more tabletop games, I mean, and heck, we have Pathfinder doing the Yoshi P Final Fantasy 14 thing where like a game consistently working really hard, getting progressively better and better and better, eventually might beat out D&D one day. You never know. But that won't happen until the market kind of gets bursted wide open. And even then, it will never be like a permanent thing. But it might be, we might see that success story where Pathfinder becomes more synonymous with tabletop than it is now. Because like when you talk about MMOs, it used to be, oh, I play World of Warcraft, but that's just not the case anymore. People don't say it that way anymore, right? That's what I want to happen against D&D. I want the market to be opened up where we have other great games like Pathfinder, where when people are talking about it, they're like, oh yeah, I play TTRPGs, kind of like Pathfinder or D&D, you know. And I think there's a really strong chance next year is going to be the year where we're going to see how likely this is to happen. If next year's a dud, I legitimately don't know. Oh yeah, we also have Amber coming out next year as well. I had completely forgotten, but Foundry's virtual tabletop game also coming out next year, which is going to be hype. So
always fun when we talking about game releases and we keep forgetting other games that are dropping.
Yeah, there's another one and another one. So, you know, like if next year's a dud and all this effort in D&D's constant floundering still doesn't produce like a more open TTRPG, please let me see what your own system is like, Ember. I know for sure. I feel the same.
Yeah, I'd say
next year I think is going to be a big Crucible year. Like a bunch of names are coming into this battle, and if D&D just sits around, does nothing, and still comes out on top, or still like doesn't seem like it's doing any worse for it, I don't know what to say about tabletop. And like that's honestly the most defeatist view I've had on tabletop in a while. But that's because like I don't feel like there's going to be a better time for tabletop to shine than next year. And it might not happen like in next year, but it might start next year because many of the games are coming out in like the final quarter of next year, like next November, October, September, August, you know, in that range. And so they might get the fire going, but that we might not see the results of that until halfway through the next year. It's hard to say, but I think we'll start to see the embers, funny enough, if things are going well. So who knows? I legitimately don't know, because I feel like tabletop is so underviewed in so many ways. So we'll see. I don't know. I'm very hopeful, though. I think there's a lot of really cool games coming out. And honestly, we just need some big tabletop content creators to go out and start hyping up games and stop worrying about how much money they're making off of D&D. Because, like, that's the thing for D&D content creators. I think that needs to be considered as well. If D&D keeps, floundering, their numbers are just going to keep going down year after year because less people are just overall interested in tabletop. So those big names really need to start taking more risks with their content to get it out there for a bigger audience to see, because otherwise they're going to go down with the WotC ship, and I can't imagine a fate worse than that going down with Wizards of the Coast. That seems,
that would suck.
Yeah, it's like just imagining you're there, you can't continue living off of the monetization off of your channel, and you're just like, damn, Wizards of the Coast screwed my channel over. And just being like, man, I wish the world was different. I wish I didn't have to talk about this game. It's like, you could have. You're the ones who could have made a difference. All those cowards out there who were talking about Pathfinder who gave up. Like, come on. Just like you're gonna, and I do actually feel like we got in the stream here. We're going way over. I'm aware, but like I do think legitimately a lot of D&D content creators have been feeling a bit of the squeeze lately. It feels like that. I feel like a lot of them are being a little bit more desperate for content.
I have to go check in on like the big D&D people. I've just seen such like less and less prominent like D&D content that like that's at least what I've noticed. It's just less prominent, or the ones I do notice are like stuff that's still general enough to catch wider appeal.
Yeah, it's really hard. It could be that the algorithm is noticing the downward trend and is showing it less on YouTube. So, like, I don't know. But I would be very curious to see if D&D content creators have been feeling a bit of a squeeze on their content as of late. Unfortunately, that's something only they would know.
I look up D&D, and most of the videos that I'm getting recommended came out like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Oof.
So, I don't know, but like WotC's ship is sinking. Like, I do think we're now starting to see the decline of D&D right now. That could change. That could change as early as the next book that they release. They could have a big swing around. That's always a possibility. I've seen it done many times before. But I do think WotC's on the decline, or at least D&D is on the decline. Magic has never been bigger than ever recently. So like I do think we're starting to see the sunsetting of D&D 5e as far as like major content. If Hasbro and WotC do nothing else, the game is just going to start losing people over time. And that means tabletop is losing people over time, because those people aren't going anywhere else because they literally don't know. Like, legitimately, you can't go to the same stores you buy D&D books and find that many other tabletop games. I've tried. I've literally gone, like, we were at Barnes & Noble recently, and there's barely anything else there besides D&D. Like, yeah, there's some Pathfinder books, but, whatever. Like, there's no variety. And, like, I go to game stores all the time, and their tabletop section is always so small.
Like one store in your area that had like a really cool tabletop section.
Right.
It's like one store. And then I have a similar thing where I have one store in my area in like my like wild ass like middle of nowhere town That's like just because the guy who runs it is cool.
Yeah.
And that's it. It's because he's cool. That the tabletop shelf is stocked with like good games. Like he had Physical Lancer, so he's cool.
That is sick. So, you know, like tabletop is declining. It's starting to right now with D&D's big fuck up with 2024. And it would be tragic for tabletop to kind of just stay at this level of nicheness when we had such a golden era recently. Next year, it might be the year where we really get to see what happens with tabletop. Because legitimately, I don't know how I can come back unless Wizards of the Coast does something. Maybe Pathfinder, because Pathfinder's been doing some work. Okay, Pathfinder's been doing some work. They've obviously been making more money, and maybe there's some information there we don't know. But even their newer game, which honestly doesn't look the best to me personally. It's like, hey, a CRPG only with figurines in it rather than actual animated models. But it's been getting funded, you know.
I mean, yeah, as long as it's like the rule set, I don't particularly care how flashy the visuals are. If it's got like the Pathfinder rule set, I'm happy. Because I just want a virtual simulator to play out my Pathfinder builds. But I can see the art style. Like, I want to see it in motion, like really bad, like more.
Yeah, I definitely believe in tabletop. I believe that there is place in the niche, and I legitimately feel like I legitimately feel that people love tabletop, and that tabletop is just unfortunately in one of those periods where like it's just not accessible enough to enough people yet to really like get its feet under it, to get going on its own momentum. We still need to innovate. We still need to add more. And with WotC dropping the ball with D&D 2024, like, it might be another 10 years before tabletop like has another resurgence. Who knows? We'll see. Next year might be the big year. Next year we might see a lot more games that are really that people are talking about. But, you know, it sucks that the Dragon game holds such a death grip on the market that if it sinks, it takes everyone else with it. And for me, it's not necessarily a big deal. People are always going to love tabletop, and I've always been in this niche hobby anyway. So it's like, I'll always have games to play, but I want more people to have games to play, you know?
Yeah, I at least see one of the actual worst case scenarios is that, like, for a majority of people, I just think, like, people who are in the game casually, I think it's just tabletop is just kind of a lot of effort on, like, loading up a video game or whatever. And I just think tabletop can just go the way of, like, becoming kind of a spectator sport. You just watch other people play the game and play it more entertaining than you could ever. So, like, you just get more value out of, like, actual play content. Because I just see a lot of casual players getting a lot more fun out of actual plays than I do. And sometimes in campaigns they talk about themselves.
Yeah, we'll see. But that's going to be it for us. We went way over. There were so many interesting topics. I did not think that today's topic, I was just like, oh fuck, what do I talk about today? I know, let's talk about the biggest books to come out from Paizo. That's an interesting conversation, right? A lot more interesting than I thought. It brought up some interesting conversations.
Got some good tangent.
Yeah. Alex, anything you want to leave us off with today before we head out?
Yeah, if you're interested in tabletop lore content, go check out Glue Boy. That's me, my YouTube, linked on Cam's YouTubers. Go look that up. You'll find a bunch of stuff for Warhammer 40k, Vampire the Masquerade, Lancer, a bunch of stuff. I'm gonna put out a video probably soon here, quite honestly, But yeah, I got me some lore content. I put out a video a few days ago, so stuff's gonna be flinging at you if you like Warhammer. So come swing by.
And as for me, I'm going to be doing build videos more regularly. So if you love Pathfinder 2e builds, I might even do some builds for things like Fabula Ultima or for Lancer. Lancer, for sure. I definitely want to get back into finishing up the rest of the licenses. I only have like the Zang left. And
Yeah, that's easy.
yeah, and then I might do some Lancer builds as well. Also, some more content on me, just kind of talking about role-playing and how to play certain kinds of characters. I'm working hard on the content. I'm trying to make my content overall better, but that does mean that the content is going to slow down a little bit, at least until War of Immortals comes out, and then I'll be doing a bunch of review content for that. So, you know, for the next couple weeks, expect a video or two a week, but then when War of Immortals comes out, I mean, let's see. How many weeks are we out from War of Immortals? Let's take a look real quick before we end today. Let's see. Because War of Immortals comes out like the 28th. Is it? Let me double check. Because I usually get it about a week or so in advance. Like 1 to 2 weeks in advance. Second edition. War of Immortals, October 30th. All right, so October 30th. That is... So I should be getting it on the 16th, or no, on the 23rd. So between the 16th and the 23rd, in that range. So that's 1, 2, 3. So in 3 to 4 weeks, we'll be getting War of Immortals. So stay tuned for that. Subscribe if you haven't done so already. Keep an eye out on the videos. Join the Discord. And with that, we're going to go ahead and say goodnight.
Good night.
Good night.